People say you always remember the moment your world changes. For me, it was a quiet Sunday morning. I was 10. My name is Alina Monroe, and that was the day my dad left us for good. It started like any other Sunday. Mama was in the kitchen flipping pancakes that were always a little too burnt on one side. I was sitting at the table in my pink pajamas, working on my spelling homework. My little brother, Eli, was in his high chair banging a plastic spoon like it was a drum. Dad walked in, already dressed, black polo, jeans, and his old leather boots. He had a suitcase in one hand and car keys in the other. "Where are you going?" I asked, halfway through writing the word elephant. He didn't answer right away. Just looked around the room like he was memorizing it. Mama turned, spatula still in hand. "Bill." "I'm leaving," he said flatly. The room fell silent. I looked at Mama. She froze, her face pale. "What do you mean you're leaving?" He sighed, like it was some burden we were making harder than it needed to be. "I can't do this anymore, Leah. I'm not happy. I haven't been for a long time." Mama's voice cracked. "So you're just walking out? On your kids? On me?" "I met someone," he said. Just like that. No shame. No apology. "Her name's Janelle. She understands me. She's different." I didn't understand what any of it meant. I just knew my mom was crying, and my dad wasn't holding her. "Dad," I said, my voice small. "What about our camping trip?" He didn't look at me. That hurt more than anything. "I'll call you, kiddo," he mumbled, eyes on the floor. "I'll check in." Mama slammed the spatula on the counter. "You won't even look at your daughter?"
His jaw tightened.
"Don't do this, Leah. I've made up my mind." He walked to the door. I heard Eli start to cry, sensing something was wrong. Mama was shaking, one hand covering her mouth. And then he left. No hug. No goodbye. No, "I'll miss you." Just the sound of the door closing behind him. Like a final period on the last sentence of our family. The days after that were blurry. Mama barely slept. I could hear her crying through the walls at night. She didn't want me to know, but I did. I'd crawl into bed with Eli just so I wouldn't feel so alone. The bills piled up fast. I didn't know much about money, but I knew things were bad when Mama started selling her jewelry. One night, I caught her counting coins from a mason jar just to buy groceries. "Why did he leave us, Mama?" I asked one night while she was folding laundry. She paused, looked at me with tired eyes. "Because some people love the idea of family more than the work it takes to keep one."
I didn't really get it then, but I do now.
Dad tried to call a few times. Left voicemails. Never once said sorry. Just told Mama to tell the kids hi. Sometimes he'd post pictures of him and that Janelle lady on Facebook, smiling in Cancun or buying a new car. One time he even posted, "Happiness is finally putting yourself first." I wanted to scream. Was that what we were? Just weights he had to drop to feel happy? By the time I was 13, the calls stopped. And I stopped hoping. Mama picked up more hours, cleaning houses during the day and waitressing at a 24-hour diner at night. I learned to cook macaroni and scrambled eggs. I walked Eli to and from preschool. Sometimes I helped him with his letters even when I hadn't finished my own homework. We became our own little team.
Mama. Me.
Eli. I didn't have sleepovers or birthday parties like other kids. But I had something else. Survival. And maybe that made me grow up faster than I should have. I remember one Christmas, Mama couldn't afford gifts, so she cut shapes out of old magazines and wrote little notes on them. Mine said, "One day, you'll build a life that no one can ever walk away from." I kept that piece of paper in my journal for years. By the time I turned 18, I knew one thing for sure. I would never depend on anyone the way Mama had depended on Dad. I would build my own future, brick by brick, with no shortcuts and no handouts. We didn't need him. Not his money. Not his name. Not his pity. He left us when it was hard. So, he didn't deserve to come back when it was easy. And I told myself something else, too. Something I still believe. If he ever came back, looking for help, for love, for a home, I'd be the one standing at the door. And I wouldn't open it. After high school, while most girls my age were picking out dorm decorations and planning college parties, I was Googling how to start a business with $0. I didn't have the luxury of dreaming. Dreams were for people who had someone to catch them if they fell. I had Eli. I had Mama. And I had a promise I'd made to myself. Never need saving again. I took a job at a nail salon downtown, sweeping up polished dust and folding towels. The owner, a woman named Miss Twen, took me under her wing. She taught me more than nails, she taught me hustle. People come to get pretty, she said once, but they stay for how you make them feel. I listened. I learned. I watched how she talked to clients, how she made every woman feel like she mattered. At night, I practiced on my own hands, watching YouTube tutorials until my wrists ached. By the time I was 21, I had enough loyal clients to go solo. I turned the corner of our apartment into a tiny studio, just a desk, a ring light, and a dream. I called it Alina's Touch. I walked to clients' homes, carried my supplies in a pink rolling case, and smiled through exhaustion. I worked through holidays, skipped birthdays, and poured every tip into savings. Some days, I'd collapse on the couch, hands covered in acetone, feet blistered, eyes burning. But inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in years.
Pride.
I'll never forget the day I handed Mama the keys to a used Toyota Corolla. "You bought this?" she gasped, holding her chest. "No more walking to the bus stop in the rain." I grinned. "You deserve better." She cried like she did the day Dad left, except this time, they were happy tears. Eli was thriving too. Straight A student. Played trumpet in the marching band. Called me his second mom in a school essay once. I kept that paper in my wallet. We weren't rich, but we were good. Safe.
Whole.
The kind of family that doesn't need perfection to be solid. Then one Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I had just finished with a client when I heard the bell above the studio door ring. I turned, expecting someone from my regulars. Instead, I froze. There he was. My father, Bill Monroe, wearing a faded blazer and slacks that didn't fit. His once dark hair now thinning and mostly gray. His face was fuller, his eyes tired, his mouth twitching like he wasn't sure whether to smile or cry. "Alina," he said like my name was foreign in his mouth. "You look just like your mother." I stood behind my table, hands still coated in cuticle oil. He looked like a ghost from a life I'd buried. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice cold. He ran a hand through his hair. I've had a rough couple years.
Lost the job.
Janelle and I split. It's been hard. I didn't move. "I heard you have a business," he continued, forcing a weak smile. "It's beautiful. I'm proud of you." I said nothing. The only sound was the soft hum of my air purifier. He shifted awkwardly. "Look, I know I don't deserve anything, but I was wondering if you had a couch. Just for a bit. Until I get back on my feet." He looked around the studio like he was seeing the life he could have had. The life he walked out on. I stared at him. The man who'd left us for someone shinier, newer. The man who posted selfies in Hawaii while Mama worked double shifts. The man who didn't even send a birthday card.
Now he wanted in.
My voice came out steady. "I don't have a couch for you." His face fell. "Alina." I held up a hand. "I built this from nothing. I paid off debts you left behind." I wiped Eli's tears. "I watched Mama collapse from exhaustion because you left her alone." His eyes welled up. "I'm sorry. I swear I am." I felt the burn in my chest, but I kept my voice even. "I don't hate you. I just don't owe you anything." He looked like he wanted to argue.
To plead.
But then he saw my face, and he knew. He nodded, slow and broken. "Okay, I understand." He turned and walked out, the bell above the door echoing like a full stop. That night, I didn't tell Mama. I just sat on my couch, looking around the apartment I paid for, listening to the hum of the fridge, the rain outside tapping against the windows. And I felt something I hadn't expected. Not guilt. Not anger.
But peace.
After he left my studio, I thought that would be the end of it. I told myself he got the message, loud and clear. No second chances. No welcome mats for ghosts. But 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Mama. "Alina," she said, her voice low, "your father's been calling me." I rolled my eyes without meaning to. Of course he has. He says he's sleeping in his car.
She paused.
He's parked behind that old laundromat on 6th and Hidalgo. I didn't say anything. He says he's cold and hungry. I leaned against my kitchen counter, pressing my hand to my forehead. I didn't want to hear this. This wasn't my problem. He made his choices. "Why are you telling me this, Mama?" She sighed through the phone. "Because you need to know. And because I know that deep down you're not cruel. Not even to the man who hurt you most." That stung. "I'm not cruel," I snapped. "But I'm not a doormat either." There was silence on the line. "I'm just saying," she whispered. "You don't have to forgive him. But don't let his choices turn you into someone you're not." That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, the sheets twisted around my legs. I kept thinking about the way his eyes looked. Tired, yes, but also small. Like life had finally humbled the man who once thought he was above all of us. I tried to remind myself of the truth. This was the man who left a 10-year-old girl waiting with a packed backpack for a camping trip that never happened. The man who laughed on Facebook with his new family while Mama scrubbed toilets to feed us. The man who looked right through me like I was a piece of furniture. And now he wanted warmth, shelter, grace. I thought about the homeless people I passed every morning downtown. I always gave them water, sometimes cash. Why did my father deserve less compassion?
Because he was supposed to love me.
That was the difference. The next morning, I drove by the laundromat. Just once. I didn't stop, didn't roll down my window. But I saw him, sitting in the driver's seat of an old silver sedan, window cracked, head resting against the steering wheel. He looked thinner, weaker. It didn't bring me satisfaction. It brought nausea. Back at the studio, I couldn't focus. I filed nails on autopilot. I smiled at clients, nodded when they spoke, but my mind kept drifting back to him. I kept asking myself the same question. Was this justice? Or just punishment? That night, Mama called again. "He's still there," she said softly. "Alina, maybe just talk to him. That's all." I didn't answer. "God sees how we treat people when they have nothing left," she said. "Even when they deserve it." I hung up. Then I cried. Not the pretty kind either. The ugly, shoulder-shaking, breath-stealing kind. The kind I hadn't cried since I was 13 and found out he'd had a baby with Janelle. A little girl. A new family. Like we were just a chapter he'd closed without looking back. That night, I sat with Eli on the balcony. He was 19 now. Freshman at UT Austin. Majoring in biology. Dreaming of medical school. He was everything Dad never stayed to see. I told him about the visit. About the knock. About the car behind the laundromat. Eli leaned back in the plastic chair, legs crossed, hoodie zipped up to his chin. "I don't blame you," he said simply. "I don't know what to do," I admitted. "I'm not angry anymore, but I don't trust him. I don't want him back in our lives." "Then don't let him in," he said. "Not into your home. Not into your peace. You can show kindness without giving him everything." I stared at my brother, this boy I helped raise, who somehow sounded older than me in that moment. The next day, I walked to the laundromat. He was still there, slouched in the car, fast asleep with a blanket over his lap and a half-empty bottle of water beside him. I tapped on the window. He woke with a start, blinked twice, then saw me. "Alina," his voice cracked. "I didn't think you'd." "I brought you a hot meal," I said, holding out a brown paper bag. He looked stunned. Took it slowly. "Thank you. I'm not letting you stay with me," I said before he could get his hopes up. "But I'll help you find a shelter. Maybe a program. That's all." He swallowed. "I understand." I turned to leave, but paused. "You hurt us," I said without looking back. "You left us bleeding, and now you want to come back because you're empty." His voice was barely a whisper. "I know. I don't owe you anything, Dad. But I don't want to carry this weight anymore." Then I walked away. And this time, the knock that echoed wasn't on my studio door. It was on my heart. And I was the one finally closing it. A week after I gave him that hot meal, he was gone. The car disappeared from behind the laundromat. No note. No message.
Just gone.
I checked the shelters I'd listed for him. One receptionist confirmed he'd stopped by, stayed 2 nights, then moved on. Where to, no one knew. And maybe for the first time in my life, I didn't need to know. Because this time, he was the one who left without goodbye. But unlike before, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. A month later, I opened a second studio. Alina's touch expanded into a corner unit with wide windows and polished floors. I hired 2 women, single mothers, who reminded me of Mama. One of them, Maya, told me, "You treat people like they matter. It's rare." I smiled.
Because it wasn't rare to me.
I'd learned, the hard way, what it felt like to be invisible. I was determined never to make someone else feel that. Mama came to the opening. She wore a soft yellow blouse and brought cupcakes from a local bakery. She hugged me tight, tears in her eyes. "He may have given you life, baby girl, but you gave us one." Eli made the dean's list. He sent me a photo of his grades and a text that said, "We made it, Alina."
We,
the kids he left behind. We, the family that kept going when he took the easy way out. We, the ones who turned pain into purpose. I won't lie to you. There's still moments. Days when I see a little girl on her dad's shoulders and wonder what it might have felt like to have that kind of love. There are nights when a song comes on the radio, one he used to play in the car, and for a second, I remember the good parts. Before the leaving. Before the silence. But here's what I know now. Remembering isn't weakness. It's proof I've healed enough to look back without drowning. People ask me sometimes, what would you do if he came back again? My answer is simple. I'd offer him water, but not my roof. A chair, but not my peace. A moment, but not my future. Because forgiveness doesn't mean access. Kindness doesn't mean forgetting. And strength doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a door you don't open. One evening, I was closing up the studio when a young girl came in. Maybe 15.
Quiet.
Nervous. She asked if we had any work, said her mom had just lost her job and they were trying to keep the lights on. I sat her down, gave her some cocoa, and asked her what she liked to do. She said, "Draw. Mostly nails. I do designs for fun." I smiled. "Come back tomorrow," I told her. "Let's start teaching you." Her eyes lit up. And in that moment I realized this was my revenge. Not screaming. Not slamming doors. Not wishing him pain. But living a life so full, so grounded, so unshakably mine, that the man who once broke us wouldn't even recognize the pieces we rebuilt without him. He came crawling back broke. But I didn't let him in. Not because I was cold, but because I'd finally built something warm enough to protect. And I wasn't letting anyone take that from me again.